Wow. I just finished editing this interview with my colleague and friend, Darren Cyrus. We have so much fun in this conversation. I totally forgot. We recorded this way back in January of 2024, and it's going to be dropped at the very end of 2024. So almost a year from the time we recorded. And I can already see how so much has changed for me personally over the course of this year. I want to give a little heads up for a little bit of a content warning. We briefly talk about a case of mine that has some childhood sexual abuse. So if that's something you're sensitive to, it's towards the end of the conversation. This is a good hour and a half long, so there's plenty there. Feel free to skip ahead when we come to that section of the conversation. But I hope you enjoy. I have one more episode to come out this year. I'm going to try to get it out before the end of the year. Can't promise I will, but I've told myself I'm not allowed to start recording season 3 until I do. So keep a lookout for that last episode. And I can't wait for the next season. Here's your little spoiler. It's going to be people that are based here in Southern California. That's the theme. All right. I hope you enjoy. Welcome to the Intimacy Lab. I'm Michelle Renee, an intimacy guide, surrogate partner, and professional cuddler. We're here to talk about intimacy in a much broader view than what you probably think. Most people think about intimacy as sex. We're going to break that apart here. Welcome to the lab. Welcome back to the Intimacy Lab. I get to be joined today by a colleague on the East Coast named Darren Cyrus, who this is our first time having like a one-on-one together. We've known each other for a little while now because Darren is part of the East Coast Intimacy Professionals group that I co-lead with Brian Gibney. It's like a peer-to-peer support for people that are in intimacy as professionals, like talk therapists, touch people, educators, and Darren happens to be one of the touch people. So Darren, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to us?
Michelle, thank you very much. Yeah, it's great to be here with you. We get to have a little time together and get to know each other a little bit better. My name is Darren Cyrus. I am a licensed massage therapist in the state of Virginia. I am also a sexological body worker and somatic sex educator in training. I should be complete with the certification later this year. I'm currently exploring the overlap of those two worlds, right? And I'm located in Virginia, just west of Washington, D.C. And Virginia has some unique laws governing massage therapy that could make a clear path to be able to do sex bod work as an integrated part of my practice.
I love that. And you're the first person that's really talked about the delicacies of these laws, especially since you're in a licensed profession. I'm not in a licensed profession. So I get to make up my own rules as I go along. I mean, laws be damned, whatever.
Yeah.
Take this, soccer mom looking person to court, I guess. I don't know. I have a lot of privilege in that, and I recognize that. But I love the work of touch and sexual healing. And I love that what I'm finding for myself as I changed my boundaries around a little bit around my work is where is the line between sex and healing touch? And how far up to that line do I really want to get? Like, where is my sweet spot where I love what I'm doing and it's still really, really impactful for the client?
Yeah.
So.
I have a thought on that.
Yes, please, sure.
Yeah, kind of like that. That transition between sex and healing touch for me is, if I am inserting my own desires, then that is like a sexual exchange between people. But if it's purely one directional for the client's benefit, then that for me falls under sexual healing touch.
Yeah, and I'm starting to so before we jump into the we're not really strangers cards, we'll have this little conversation here, because I think this is where my own journey meets my work journey. And because surrogate partner therapy traditionally is very two-way touch, especially if it includes erotic touch, it's very relational touch. That's where I'm starting to feel less yes. So I don't do a lot of erotic contact with clients. It doesn't happen very often. But I had a client in town this last week where we did do one-way genital touch, and I felt really a yes in that space. So it's like I'm slowly kind of, well, if I don't want to go all the way to this direction, where can I still find my yes? And in that, it's different than my understanding of sex bod or sexological bodywork or somatic sex education, in that, and you can correct me, maybe people are doing it differently, but I was naked with the client. I did use my body as a way to show anatomy and to show the differences in our bodies, even though we're both, assigned female at birth. We all look different, right? And I get to use my body in a way to normalize and to give kind of this tour guide kind of service, but it's not from a place of engaging with the client. It's just being in it with the client, right? And so I have that Betty Dodson background. I don't know if you're familiar with her. No, well, the audience might not be either. So Betty Dodson was this old badass woman that I met when she was like 85 years old, and she was still doing masturbation workshops in her Manhattan apartment. And it was like a 2-day workshop. I went back in 2014, and everybody was naked. It was women only. Everybody's naked. It's about a dozen people. And part of that workshop was to sit naked with each other, and each person would get a tour through their genitals. Betty would sit down with you with a mirror and a light, and everybody would sit around and watch. And we get to see a dozen different vulvas and how every one of them is different. There's no like standard. And we always think that we're different because if we're watching a lot of porn or what have you, there tends to be kind of a standard thanks to labiaplasty and bullshit like that. Right. So being able to, this wasn't a group event, and not a lot of people are ready to jump into a group of a dozen ladies. I call it like graduate level jumping off the cliff kind of work. But this woman was definitely ready for like a one-on-one version of that. And so I got to be in it with her, but not engaging in sexual activity.
Yeah. So like the difference between that experience and sex bod is that in sex bod, the practitioner is always clothed, right?
That was my understanding.
Yeah. So, I mean, it brings up something, an interesting scenario. So me being male bodied, I wouldn't have even the capacity to teach a female bodied client about their body in that way, like in relation to my body. So I think in the experience that you described, there's like a coming together of people and saying, okay, like I'm normal. Like there's, all these different vulvas and they all look different and we're all normal. Pardon me. The work of sex bod is counter normative. So it's like, it doesn't matter what the norm is. We're going to dive into where you are in this exact moment. Right. So, in that way, it is more singular. Yeah, just kind of like one-on-one. And it's like, well, my body doesn't matter in this scenario. Like, what are you sensing? What are you experiencing? what's coming up for you. So yeah, it's like a real focus on the client, and like norm just kind of goes out the window. Yeah, and there's a lot of value in seeing yourself up against other people and being like, oh, I'm not like weird or outside the norm. But yeah, the work of Sexbot is counter normative. So we don't even think about anybody else in the work. It's just like, where are you and what are you experiencing?
Yeah, I believe that is a lot of the surrogate partner side of the work of like, I'm not going to fix what, like if people come in, they're like, they think that I have a magic wand to fix their erectile dysfunction or whatever, right? I'm like, no, I'm just here to help you work with what you got,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, especially with ED and coming from you, it's like instead of like, oh, we're going to try to have you maintain an erection so you can sustain PIV intercourse for 2 minutes and then have an ejaculation, which is like the norm,
Okay,
right?
check box. We hit all the check boxes. Yeah.
Exactly. Instead of that, it's like, what that soft ass dick do? Like, bring it over here.
Yeah, it's
See.
fun. It's cute. I got to relive that. I don't, so I have the soft cock week, and I know you're familiar with
Yeah.
that. I was at a coffee date with somebody who was curious about becoming a professional cuddler the other day. And I got to talk about all the different things that I do. And I was talking about soft cock week, and we got to just kind of like love on soft cocks from the coffee shop. Like we both just sat and chatted about how cute they are and like their the softness, the velvetiness of them, and just kind of
Mm,
ooze about how cute they are. And like, who
mm,
gets to do that on a regular basis? I just
mm,
imagine people were like eavesdropping on our conversation and being like, what the fuck are these people chatting about? But
Well, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's incredible. If I can share a little bit,
yes.
as I'm working through my sex bod curriculum, I had the opportunity to work hands on with a penis for the first time a couple weeks ago. And yeah, it was a really incredible experience. Um, in some ways, I kind of felt, uh, kind of flaily, like I am cis het, so I have not had, I've not taken the opportunity to goof around with any dicks in my life. Um, but yeah, just feeling how it's so much different than a vulva, but so much personality. Yeah, a certain power to it also. Yeah, and just like a lot of fun to goof around with.
Yeah, we take it all so seriously.
Yeah,
Like I
yeah.
remember my girlfriend Sarah, she taught me how to do sounding. I don't know, are you familiar with sounding? Where okay, so for the people at home, hold yourself close because I might blow your mind in it for a second, or you'll be like, "Oh, that's nothing." Some people like to have their urethras stretched, and so this can be for vulvas and penises, but I've only done it with penises. You stick a silicone or metal rod into the shaft of your penis down through the urethra, and it does the stretching thing. Um, some people find it incredibly pleasurable. And so I was learning how to do that. I said to my partner, I said, babe, I have an idea. And he's usually like, oh, yes, sign me up. And I'm like, you might want to wait a second before you consent to this one. I love prostate play. And Sarah had opened my eyes to the fact that in sounding, you're playing with the prostate from the top instead of coming in through the anus. And I was like, oh, tell me more. This is like another route for me. And so I said to my partner, I said, hey, I have this idea. And he was like, yes, yes, yes. And I was like, just a minute, because I want to shove a rod in your penis. And he was like, And I go, Sarah's going to teach us. And he goes, oh, well, that sounds fun. Like, like having Sarah involved was the push for the yes. And at that time, she used her partner to teach us on. And there was a point where she said, Paul, like, feel right here. And you can feel it like in his testicles. You can feel the rod coming down
Mm.
and not in the, like right at the, where everything
Yeah, the
meets.
base.
And, and he did. And he goes, this is the first penis I've ever touched that wasn't mine. Like there was that moment of like, huh, interesting. This is fascinating. It's a thing to kind of have your first experience and
Yeah.
see what happens on the other side. So I'm glad that you found it to be fun.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, like, in some ways, I mean, it's just like another body part. Being a massage
Mhm.
therapist, like I touch bodies all day, like every day. And the sex bod work is an extension of that. It's like hands on, hands in, genital massage, but it's always like a part of like a more expansive massage. It's not just diving straight in. So yeah, in some ways it was just like, oh, like I was massaging this person's back. Now I'm massaging their face.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
We have the same parts, they're just organized differently.
exactly. Yeah, there's a comedian, Tiffany Haddish. She did a interview on a morning show, and I don't know how it came up, but there's clips on the internet you can find. And she basically tells one of the hosts that male body, she was just like, your coochie fell out, right? It's like the nut sack is I mean, it
Yeah.
wasn't all atomically correct, but like the nut sack is the uterus and balls is the ovaries. Like, I mean, it's really, really funny the way she put
But
it.
I I love the occasional on social media the post will go around where it shows how we changed in
Yeah,
utero, and like I just find it so, I'm like, see, it's all the same, people. Like
yeah, it
yeah.
is. Yeah, 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 absolutely. And like, being informed with vulvas kind of helped me because I mean there's like a frenulum on the clitoris and there's a frenulum on the penis, and that's kind of like the hot spot. So when arousal comes up, you might want to just play with that and not like dive straight in. So yeah, just like a lot of stuff that is like the same tissue is just different scale
Yeah.
and configuration.
Yeah. Oh, and where we're normalized, like I'm primarily with men. That, I mean, I'm bisexual, but I'm not with a lot of vulvas very often. So my comfort level around penises way higher than vulvas, but I know how mine works. I know what I like. I
Yeah.
also, the translation between penises and vulvas, yes, it's the same kind of like, okay, if we slow this down, right?
Mm.
Slow it down,
Yeah.
we can all communicate and figure out what feels good.
Exactly. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, my own experience with my own penis kind of like came in because at some points I kind of felt like I was like flailing. And I mean, there were like strokes and techniques that I've learned through the course, but putting it into action. And yeah, I was just like, well, what does my penis like? And then just try
Mhm.
to couple things, and it was successful. So,
That's awesome. I love that story because we all start somewhere, right?
yes,
And
thank you.
I know for this client that was coming into town, there was a part of me. I have an OMG subscription that I haven't started to go through yet. OMGS is a really cool website that teaches you how to touch vulvas,
Yeah,
and
yeah, I love it. It put me up on game, as they say.
okay,
Real.
you're going to inspire me, Darren, to get on this. But I had some time over winter break, in between Christmas and New Year's, and I really considered prepping for this client because I wasn't sure where exactly we were going to go in the work during our couple of days together, and I really considered like doing a crash course in OMGS just to make my secure, like my confidence feel better. But and then I was like, no, there were some other things I preferred to do, and it worked out fine because we didn't really get into as much erotic touch
Mm,
as I thought we possibly could, but we move at everyone's own pace,
yeah,
right? And where myself, the client, the therapist thinks they might be able to go in our time together isn't always how what shows up in the space, right? Because you don't know what you don't know.
exactly. Yeah, and like having a plan is good, but listening and staying connected and kind of being in the flow is much better.
I think it's like keeping your toolbox stocked,
Yes.
So that when you're in that space, you're like, oh, this sounds like something for this exercise, or this sounds like something for this. And so, yeah, that's totally what happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right, we're going to jump into the we're not really strangers.
Okay.
Okay. Stretch.
Yes. That's a little nerves. Like, yeah, sometimes I do take a bit of a pause to kind of feel what's coming up instead of thinking it to death. And if my pause is too long, you can just kind of like prod
Here's
me
the
a little.
beauty of this.
Yeah.
There's this great little tool on Riverside where it lets me magically erase all the blanks.
Oh,
It just like
wow.
goes in and like squeezes everything together. So the people at home will never know how long we took to consider our answers. But I think it's important that we share that we do consider our answers, because shooting from the hip is not nearly as thoughtful, right? It's like if we really want to be vulnerable, this is what everybody comes here for.
Mm.
Maybe they don't want to, but they want to stretch themselves. Um, we have to pause. I like, even though I don't run in like the tantra world. When I was at like a pro, um, gosh, a few years ago, which is like Wheel of Consent
Mm-hmm.
for touch workers, they would say, take the sacred pause, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, the sacred pause. It sounds a little woo woo,
Mm.
but it is important to take that pause and really check in with yourself. Cuddle party. We do an exercise in there. And we talk about like, you can really feel whether you're a yes or a no by taking that pause and checking in with your body.
Absolutely.
For most people. And if you can't, then we got stuff to work on,
Mm.
right? It just kind of informs where we're going to start our work when I do that with new clients,
Mm.
because some people can't.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and the way to get to that place is by taking that pause. And once, I mean, I'll speak for myself. Like once I did it enough, and even like if I had an answer ready, like on my tongue, I would still pause and just like wait, say, okay, I have an answer, but let me just wait and see if any other information comes up. So now I've gotten to the point like if I ask like a question or someone asks a question and I pause, like I know like where in my body the answer will come from, but
Mm-hmm.
also sometimes like I know like there'll almost sometimes be a voice too, like like a clear yes or a no.
Mm-hmm.
So like if someone asks me a question and I pause, sometimes I'll hear the clear yes and no. If I don't hear the clear yes and no, then I'll pause, deepen breath a little bit more, and then wait for the answer to bubble up from my body. And then if that doesn't happen, then I'll use the best information that I have and I'll make a cognitive decision.
I love that. I have a people pleasing background.
Mm.
I'm a recovering codependent.
Mm.
And for me, it's this immediate urge to say yes to requests or invitations, or like example, my Michigan wife, my bestie up in Michigan. I was supposed to see her for a couple of days over Christmas.
Mm.
And she calls me the day after Christmas, and she says, or no, she calls me on Christmas Day, because we were supposed to meet each other day after Christmas. She says, "Oh, my son is coming home from his dad's with COVID.
Mm.
What do you want to do?" And my immediate thought was, because I really want to see my friend, is, oh, it'll be fine. And then I go, you know what, Laura, let's pause for a second. Let me think on this for a few minutes and let me get back to you later tonight. Because I
Mm.
knew that I was reacting out of just this uh, shoulds and wants, and like not from a place of like taking really good care of myself. Like I got off the call and I looked at my husband and I went, it would be stupid to purposely expose myself, right? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, okay, thanks. I just needed to confirm that because there's a part of me that just was like, oh, I'll wear a mask and, and I'll get to go hang out with my friend and I don't get to see her very often. And like, but
Mm.
best self-care prevailed.
Yes. Yeah. The pause is super important. And like, it could have been like a retro hangout, like, lockdowns, like let's do it virtual and have
Yeah, we
drinks.
did. We got on FaceTime instead.
Oh,
I
cool.
flew back to San Diego early instead of going over to her side of the state. And we just jumped on a couple-hour call, which is kind of what we would have done at her house. We just would have had good snacks. Like it would have been the same thing. Kids would
Snack.
have went to bed. The snacks would have flown. I'd have been trying to stay awake. It would have. I know exactly how this goes because we do this when we do
Uh,
it together. So
yes. A sidebar.
yes.
What is like your kind of like go to hangout snack? Like somebody's coming over, you're gonna hang out. Like what is the snack you pull out?
Well, I'm not. I don't. I feel like it doesn't happen at my house. I feel
Uh,
like these are always things that happen. Really, her and I. Like there was a point where I was like, maybe she'll come over to the. I was staying on the east side of the state. I was like, maybe she'll come over here and we'll get a hotel room and just have a girls' night. And my husband Paul goes, "What does a girls' night look like?" And I go, "Oh, we're just gonna bring a whole bunch of snacks, watch TV, and talk. Like it's nothing scandalous at all." But she usually has like sweet and salty
mm,
and like a mix of things. So there's like we're both red vine fans, so like there's going to be
mm.
red vines. There's going to be like some kind of cheese and cracker kind of situation, maybe meat. It's some kind of, charcuterie board. I have such a hard time with that word. Yes, charcuterie, whatever. A selection of all sorts of things, and she'll just keep coming out with different things. And
Mm,
there's usually alcohol.
mm.
Yeah, so
All
maybe
right.
desserts. Whatever. Like, yeah, she has kids. She keeps all the best snacks at her house. Like, I go through her cupboards when I get there because I'm like, ooh, we're gonna have graham crackers. Like, I things that I just don't keep in my house.
Yeah.
Kid snacks. So
Yeah, kid snacks are great. It's like they're handy. You can have like a couple of them. Yeah, I love kid snacks.
yeah,
You're from Michigan, is that correct?
Yeah, I started my first 40 years were in West Michigan, around Kalamazoo.
Ooh.
And then my partner moved out here to San Diego in 2016, and I followed him like 2 years later. Um, love Southern California. I feel like
Mm,
I should have lived here my whole life.
mm,
And then we moved to Baltimore well, we were there for a couple of years. We were there for probably 3 years. But I was only there full time for 1 year. And then I started being part time back and forth between San Diego
mm.
and Baltimore. And then we finished and came back full time at the end of May. So,
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
yep. So, yeah. But I grew up in a little farm town called Delton in
Mm,
Michigan. My mom lived in the same house. Like it was like generations of people from family being there. And like I had her teachers and her bus drivers. Like it was just a very small town. So,
mm.
yep.
Wow. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Have you always lived in the
Like DC area.
DC area? Yeah.
The DMV, as
The
they call it.
DMV.
Yeah, so I was born in DC and lived there until I was about 10. Then, like a suburb of DC in Southern Maryland called Clinton, Maryland. Um, Used to be called like Surrattsville. It's like Mary Surratt and John Wilkes Booth and Dr. Mudd. It's like a whole thing, Lincoln assassination thing.
Yeah.
So from there, moved to Virginia, like way west of DC, like in a pretty rural part. Um, then moved to Connecticut, where
Mm.
I worked at ESPN for a number of years. Worked in television for like most of my career. Moved back to I should have do not disturb that. Moved back from Connecticut back to Virginia to be closer to family. That was around 2005. And yeah, I've been in Virginia since.
Cool. I'll be back. Okay, you ready to jump into cards?
Yeah, maybe all this chatting was like avoiding jumping into the cards, but I guess, yeah, I am willing to jump into the cards.
Okay, so I randomly pulled this one out, and I'm going to give you full consent. You can always pass.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Finish the sentence. Just by looking at you, I'd think blank.
That's super. That's super open.
It's so broad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna take a second and look and see what comes up. Okay. So just by looking at you, I think
I'd
blank.
think blank. I'm just gonna go with the first thing that popped in my head when this came up when I answer my side of it. I can go first if you want, or you can go first.
Sure, that'll give me more time. Yes.
Okay. So this is what popped in my head. I don't know rhyme or reason. I'm just gonna say it with no explanation. Just by looking at you, I'd think that you were a singer. I don't know why. Maybe it's more like listening to you. I would think you were a singer.
Yeah, I've never been a singer. I sing around the house like sometimes, but yeah, no training, no
You have a beautiful
gigs
voice.
or
As far
anything.
as like you have a voice for radio, as they
Oh,
say.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. My squirming around and avoiding goes away now. Just by looking at you, I think yeah, I think you're happy.
I mean that's a good I would say I would there's nothing about my life I would change. So I'd say yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. That's good. I don't
Hmm.
want to come off as like resting bitch face. Although it's fine.
Yeah.
I have one of the sweatshirts that are all over social media that say "Be kind," and then
Hmm.
underneath it says "Of a bitch."
I
And
love
I
that.
just see that as having good boundaries.
Yes. I love a good one-liner. That's um but yeah, I mean looking at you, just I mean even as I was about to like reveal what the blank was, yeah, there was just like this presence and yeah, openness, receptiveness that's in you. And yeah, in my experience, only people that are pretty happy with their lives are able to be like that present. Yeah.
Yeah. I've had Michelle 1.0 that was not on this side of the experience. So
Mm,
I think that's what makes me so happy is I have like I can see the difference. Like I know the difference. I've had great loss and grief to be able to really like experience like real deep happiness.
yeah.
So yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. See, it's not that hard. Oh, okay.
Ooh, oh boy.
Okay. This is level 2 connection.
Mm,
If you have, when was the moment you realized you weren't invincible?
yeah. Um, so back in 2016, I was transitioning out of my like corporate television job into massage therapy. And just really randomly, I was helping like some random person lift something and I wrenched my back and it kept getting like worse and worse and worse to the point where I was like bedbound for like a month, like couldn't walk. I like had severe sciatica, but like leading up to where I like couldn't move, I was still just trying to do everything regularly, but the pain, it's like my body was like, you can't. Like there's no way that you can. So that experience really really let me know it's like you're not invincible. Aging is a thing. And all the ways that I hadn't taken care of my back, hadn't taken care of my body, like, yeah, really showed up. So yeah, that was really stark. That was like a really big wake up call. And it's like, yeah, you're not invincible.
Thanks for leading on that, because you totally popped a memory into my head that I can use.
Mm.
For me, the invincible thing, I'm going to interchange it with like my ego thinking that I'm still 18.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And like opportunities, invitations, and I'm like, yeah, run into the fire. I'm not like, it's like my ego just gets an opportunity. It's like, yeah, you can go do that. You're a badass. You can do whatever you want, right? And I was at the rock climbing gym, and I like rock climbing, like I guess you call it top roping,
Mm-hmm.
where I have a harness on and I come off the wall just like everybody else, right? Um, we were going with friends, and they were doing bouldering, which is like the shorter walls. You don't have a harness.
Mm.
There's big mats underneath in case you fall, kind of stuff.
Okay.
And that was their kind of sweet spot. And so we were going to do bouldering, and I got like the quick no frills instruction. I assumed I knew what I was doing. It was like they told me, like when I say they, it was not people from the gym. It was the people we were climbing with. It was
Oh.
like, yeah, you just, you climb up and you go over the top of the top of the wall, and then you walk down the stairs to come back down. And if you do fall, make sure that you bend your knees and fall backwards. And I was like, okay. 18 year this is Michelle in her 40s, but her 18-year-old ego is like, yeah, we got this. And I start climbing up the wall, and then I gas out before I can complete the wall, and I don't have enough in me to even climb back down the wall. So I like, all right, this is how you get off the wall, Michelle. And I thought I was doing what they told me to do, which was like land on my back. Like I literally just like ejected myself off the wall, falling and hitting flat on my back. And I felt my lower back just brick, right? Like, and I just screamed. And Paul and our climbing buddies come running over, like, what the fuck did you just do? And I'm like, isn't that what you told me to do? They're like, no, you need to like drop down, bend your knees, and fall backwards. And I'm like, oh, well, my knees would have never taken that either. Like, I didn't have an exit strategy when I decided that I could be a yes to this, of like, what do you do if you can't complete the wall? Like, I was probably 100 pounds heavier than I am now, or close to that. Wow. My knees could not, even at this weight, I know that if I fell like that on my knees, it would be a no good. And I remember on the way home, I think we pulled in for gas or something, and I was just like crying. And I'm like, I just fucked up my life for the next however many weeks while I repair this, because my ego said yes. I didn't slow down, like we just talked about. Slow down and play this out. How does this go if it goes well? But how does it go if it doesn't go well? Right? I'm all about like taking chances and pushing my edges and whatnot. But like, if it's coming from a place of like invincibility, like this card talks about, that's what I felt like. It was like this quick decision, thinking that I was invincible, and I quickly got reminded that I'm not. And I don't boulder. That is not my jam. I will stay coming down the wall in a harness, floating to the earth. That is my preferred method.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you for sharing that story. When you talked about the impact, it's like I could like almost feel it in my body. And yeah, like, there are those moments where I'm somebody says like, oh, like do the blah, 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 blah. And it's like, oh yeah, sure. Right. And just like, no, I've learned like, let me actually pause and see if it's physically like doable for me. 'Cause otherwise I would play myself. Oof.
I think that's part of like the getting older process.
Yeah. For sure.
Like,
Yeah.
I just something I had to learn.
Hmm.
Um,
A question quickly.
yeah,
If you would like to share, what is your age?
I'm 48.
Ooh, so am I.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Awesome. I love
Okay.
it.
Okay. You keeping it tight. You look good.
I
If you're
feel
open
good.
to,
Oh,
if you're
yeah,
open
yeah.
to
No,
exploring anything with your parents. Yeah.
I feel really good. And my body still has the aches and pains that kind of started showing up at 40.
Yeah.
Like I said, I haven't said on this episode, but I have an episode coming out where we talk about bariatric surgery. I had bariatric
Mm.
surgery a couple of years ago, and I'm on maintenance medication. Um, and it is nice to be able to do a lot of things that I did before when I was 100. I guess I'm down like 120 some pounds.
Wow.
It didn't stop me from doing things before, but I can do them more often and with more ease, and I'm an easier yes. So
Mm.
like one of the examples I give is like here in San Diego, we have a nude beach called Black's Beach.
I've
And
been there
oh, you have?
when I was like 10 years old.
Oh, okay. So you might not remember how horrible it is to get to Black's
I,
Beach, but
that's one of the things I actually remember. It's like there's a cliff and you go down like a really, really steep embankment, and like there's no like stairs until like the very. Are there
oh,
even stairs?
I think you might have went down maybe like there's something called like there's a few different paths down like the surfers take.
Mm.
There are stairs from the top, but they're very primitive. It is very like it is not ADA compliant. I'll just say that it is maybe in the show notes I can put there's lots of videos on YouTube about the hike down to Black's Beach because people will
Mm.
put their GoPros on and record it. I used to do it once a year because my friend Sarah would want me to come. She was down there all the time and she'd be like, for my birthday, will you come down? And I'm like, yes. But it felt like watching The Biggest Loser where they run them through those incredibly intense exercises and they're like, I think I'm going to die right now.
Yeah.
Like I'd feel like my heart was going to come out of my chest, and it's so intense. And now I can do it. I usually am down there once a month. In the winter, not so much because it's a little too cold, but I don't hesitate to go down. Like I know I can make it back up. I started timing myself to see how fast I could do it and then beat my old record kind of stuff. Like it's a different mindset. And I had to go through this space of like when somebody would say want to go to Blacks, and I'd immediately go, ugh. I'm like, wait a minute, Michelle, you're saying that from an old version of you. There's a new story,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, it's hard, but it's not that I don't think I'm going to die.
Mm.
Yeah.
Ooh. Thank you for sharing all that. Yeah, especially
Yeah.
with like the surgery.
So if you ever come back out to San Diego and you want to go to Blacks, you let me know.
I'll let you know. I'm a little I mean I do live like in a larger body and I have my own hang-ups is the word that comes up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's been part of my journey, like really becoming comfortable in my body and um like being seen in my nakedness, like
Yeah.
yeah, is still a thing.
Well, if
And
it's something you want to tackle, again, this is another thing I just did with this woman that was in town working with me this last week. Was we did do a field trip to a place where she could be naked in public to help get over the body image stuff, and we really kept it. We went to the Korean spa. And it was nice because it was, they segregate by gender. So she wasn't having, it was like a titrated experience of like, okay, this time we're just going to be naked in front of other women. Right.
yeah.
And maybe another time she'll be ready to go. I offered, like, we have a nudist resort just about an hour north of me that I really like. And that's another place to go be naked in a public situation that is controlled environment, as far as you don't have to walk down a ridiculous flight of stairs to get to a space where you could be openly naked.
Yeah.
And in those, like, like the nudist community is such a really welcoming, non-judgmental space. It's a little different than going to Black's Beach, in that Black's Beach is public. Like anybody and their brother can come down there and be gawkers, and like there's especially women down there. It's very heavily, like it's a sausage fest in a lot of ways, as far as there's a lot of men down there.
Yeah.
And I don't think men understand what it's like to live in a woman's body and have the male gaze on her all the time. And like, if you come up to us at the beach and want to sit right by us, it's really uncomfortable. It's like we need a bubble, right? And some of those men just don't understand that they're not actually helping their cause. Like the ones that we're friends with, they just know how to behave in those spaces differently. They show a lot more respect. So anyways, if you ever want to work on that, Darren, I'm totally like a +1 for that. It's totally my thing.
Well, I will let you know.
Yeah, you let me know. Okay. So our last card in this deck is reflection.
Okay.
So the question is, what do I need to hear right now?
I'm ascertaining what you need to hear?
No, I think about yourself.
Oh, okay. You might have to go first again.
Yeah, I'm thinking. This is I feel like this is coming from old stuff for me. But the thing that I'm going to trust it and put my pride aside, I need to hear that you respect me. Like you respect my work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Michelle, I really deeply respect you. And yeah, I really respect your work.
I know it's so weird because like I know that, and I don't even like my internal, like I respect myself and all that stuff. But yeah, sometimes we just like to hear it. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Is it okay if I say that again and then we just take a little pause after?
Yeah.
Let it really land. Okay.
Yeah, I will.
Michelle, I respect you and I deeply respect your work.
Thank you. I feel very seen.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you for giving me that. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, that was my pleasure, and that was super easy to give. Super easy to give.
Yeah. Sometimes we just have to ask.
Yeah.
Right?
All right. Yeah, I think I have something. I would like to hear that there is like space. Well, yeah, I am welcomed in like the intimacy professional space as I am.
Again, it's like, yeah, let me easily affirm you in that space, that you are wanted there, appreciated there. You, even just the energy you bring around wanting to put your modalities, like to work together in your multiple modalities, and how you're navigating that, speaks to me so deeply, of like there's a deep understanding to what you do. Because to be able to pull those things together, you have to understand what you're doing. And I respect the shit out of the fact that you're talking about it. We need more of that. So your voice is so celebrated there. It's great to see your energy, because you're just again, you carry happiness with you too. And yes, I love having you there. I want to cuddle you so fucking hard.
Hmm.
We're
I'm
going to have to definitely get together when I'm
yeah,
in
I'm
town.
open
I
to
want to
cuddling.
hug you.
Mm,
Like,
mm, mm, mm. Ooh,
it's all yummy.
Michelle, thank you.
Mm-hmm. How
Uh,
did we find you in the intimacy professionals? What was your connection to us?
Francesca Gentile
Oh,
put me
yeah.
in contact with Brian, and then yeah, I just kind
That's
of
awesome.
came on in. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a lovely network of just organic. Like we haven't done much to promote it. I think I've mentioned it on social media just a couple of times over the couple of years. But people come in and then they spread the word and it's so good.
Yeah, I mean it's a really great group, and yeah, just some of the conversations that I have nothing to add to, like, are super enlightening and have shown me like so many different aspects of like intimacy work. Like there's
Hmm.
this big umbrella, but like there's so much underneath it. And yeah, really passionate people, really kind people, um, knowledgeable people. Um, yeah, it's been like a real gift to be able to be accepted in that circle.
Yeah, I love the variety because, like you said, I get to learn a little bit more about everyone's work.
Yeah.
And the fact that we have talk and touch people there, like we're all getting to have a really better understanding of each other and how we can work together and the referrals that can happen from that space and like getting to know, like not just know what they do, but to know the practitioner, to understand their values. um, like
Yeah.
the fact that people show up on the call says to me a lot about their um, desire to not be on an island,
Yeah. Yeah.
because some people like to be on the island. Like
Hmm.
I think I'm making an assumption. I'm clearly not one of those people. I think there are people, because like there's been people I've invited to those groups, and when they don't come, without like, I mean, there's plenty of reason not to come schedule wise and whatnot, but when they don't find an interest in it, I'm always like a little curious as to why they wouldn't be interested in it,
Hmm.
you know.
Hmm.
So
Um, I may be able to speak to that a little bit.
please
Yeah.
enlighten me.
Yeah. Yeah, when I came in, there's I've been doing like the sexual shamanic like work, practitioner work for a while, but kind of self-taught and have been mentored by people and have learned things. So and being a massage therapist where like sexuality is kind of stripped out of that. Just starting sex bod work. Um yeah, coming in is kind of like, ooh, like, am I gonna be up to snuff? Right? Like, who's
Mm.
in this group? Like, are they gonna like judge me? Like, am I gonna have anything to add? So, like, yeah, there's like, for me, there was a little bit of, um, ooh, like, am I going to fit in? But that's
Mhm.
like the story of my life, and I've
Mhm.
embraced that recently. So it's like, I know in some way I'm not gonna fit in, and I'm just going in anyway.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being brave and doing that. Set that imposter syndrome aside.
Yeah.
And we've had other people, like, thankfully, talk about like the beauty of vulnerability,
Yeah.
to actually speak that in the space. I've had people say, I feel like an imposter because of the people that I'm in space with here in this
Mhm.
group. And then everybody got to like kind of chime in with where they found their voice valuable in a way that I think the person couldn't see it for themselves.
Yeah.
I remember my therapist here in San Diego, the last time I had a therapist here in San Diego, he really helped me understand the power of kind of like mirroring and like seeing ourselves through other people's eyes
Mm.
until we could do that for ourselves and finding our own worth.
Mm.
And yeah, I think we were able to do that for this person, and it sounds like you've settled in and know that, I mean, know that you have a space there, and everybody gets to participate at their own level.
Yeah.
Right? Like some people are going to just listen, and some people are going to find that that's not a good fit for them. Like that's also something that happens, and that's totally, gosh, thank you for taking care of yourself and realizing this isn't kind of the area of either your work or it's too much. Like we talk pretty openly there about some of our own personal struggles in our work, and it can be a lot for people if they're not used to working in the sex field.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I mean, are there a lot of people that like consider themselves like intimacy professionals but don't deal directly with sex?
Well, I think that if you're on the talk side of it and you're coming into a space with a bunch of body workers, especially sex workers that are doing, full service sex work, and you start to learn, maybe you have an idea about those people that isn't accurate. It could be over positive or maybe on the more negative side, but to know like the real ins and outs of like, I think I was talking about a client specifically when this kind of came up, where I was having to kind of pep talk myself, right? And that can be uncomfortable if you come from a background. I have a background myself in coercion in my previous like first marriage. I have to question myself. Why am I about to have sex with this client? Is it because I feel like I have to? Sometimes it does feel like that's part of it, right? I have a responsibility to help this client meet their goals. And is that okay? Right? We talk about compassionate willingness in surrogate partner therapy. I think that's a concept that is really hard for some people to wrap their head around, that this is sex work is work, right? And if you're not ready to really look at it that way, it just, or you don't want to, maybe it's just not the energy you want to be around. That can be a incompatibility for that space for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't even attempt to jump into the sex box.
I mean,
we did talk about sex.
We can if there's time. I'm open, and
I don't mind going longer, only because I got time.
Yeah, I got time.
Okay, because we're at like the hour mark here, so let's see what happens. Are you ready?
Yes, and I reserve the right to pass to the next round.
Yes. Okay. Okay, this is meant for a group, but we're gonna just I'm gonna pick a different one. I don't think it's gonna work. I just don't even want to have to try to tackle that one. I'll tell you what it was though.
Okay.
Who in this room owns the most amount of sex toys? And I'm like, I don't know what that number is.
I'm gonna just make a uneducated assumption and say it's gonna be you, maybe.
Okay, probably then. If you don't think that you have a lot to compete with, then hey,
yeah,
that's fair. Yeah. Okay, why not? Do you think I've ever had a threesome? Why or why not?
Do I think you have ever had a threesome? No.
Fascinating. I have had plenty of them.
Oh, okay. well, you said that like you're like you date like exclusively like dicks, and like you're not.
Well, not really. No, I mean I just have more experience with them.
Oh, you have more. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I've had threesomes with multiple penises too. I mean, but they have been varied in their gender. The genders I have partook in group spaces.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That was a cognitive answer.
Let me say, because I always like to take it a little farther. In July of 2015, I was on Twitter. Maybe it was end of June, somewhere in that range.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a conversation going of like, how many people does it take to qualify as a gangbang? No, not gangbang, orgy.
Mm.
Maybe that's what it was. And I think we figured like 5 or something is what we decided to. I don't know. It was a Twitter conversation. I don't know what it was, but it doesn't matter. I declared at that point I wanted to host an orgy. That was my goal for the coming like year or whatever. Put it out into the universe of Twitter. And that year for 4th of July, I like maybe July, it was like July 3rd, a bunch of my friends and I went out for drinks or something. We're sitting on this at this bar, like rooftop bar thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I said it again. I said, I really want to host an orgy. And everybody went around the table and they all opted in that night.
Mm.
They all followed me back to my place. I lived in this underground house. So it had like, I had like a couple acres of land in West Michigan, this underground house. My father was camping in the front yard. I said, everybody's just got to, enter the house quietly. If we keep the windows closed, you won't hear anything. Because this house is like built like a parking garage. Like it's covered in dirt and like it has windows on the south side, but everything else is all encased. So if the windows are closed, it's pretty quiet. And I managed, nobody chickened out. Like all 10 people showed up at my house and I hosted my first party. It's like, look at you setting intentions.
Wow.
Yep.
Went around the table and everyone was a yes. That's incredible.
Everyone was a yes. And my primary partner at the time was at a different party that night. And I remember messaging him and going, haha, look what you're missing out on. Like, I'm hosting this party and you're not here. So, Okay. Do I think you've ever had a threesome? I always think yes, because you work in this, because you're getting into the sexuality world. So I'm just going to say yes, just because I think it's so normal on our side of the tracks.
Like the technical answer, I guess, is like yes, but it was like weird and kind of sucked. So
No.
like, yeah, I don't really count it. It was like this weird, like 2 people wanted to get together, but like I was like there, but I tried to remove myself, but like somehow
So
I
you
got
were
in.
included because
Yeah,
it's like polite.
right. It's like, why am I even, I left, like I left the room. Like, why am I even here? So it doesn't, it's like a yes, but it doesn't quite count. And
There's an etiquette to 3-ways. I mean, there really is.
yeah. And like, even whenever I think about it now, like the possibility of it, I mean, honestly, it creates some anxiety for me because it's like, feels, I mean, I guess it might be like some old, like people pleasing stuff, but it's like having to manage like more than one person, manage the energy, like having to perform, blah, 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 and all that. And I'm like getting to the point where I realize it's like, oh, like I can just show up and it can just be whatever it is, and there doesn't have to be an expectation. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I taught a couple how to attend sex parties one time, and part of that was to give them like a meta 3-way where we just like had a 3-way in a teaching way. Like we all engaged, but it was very much Michelle had her teacher hat on, like, oh, this is a good opportunity to do this, and this is a good opportunity to do that, because they never had a third in their relationship. And going to sex parties is a big step. And how are you going to feel if you see your partner engage with someone else? Like doing that in the safety of a professional container. Super smart, savvy.
Yeah.
Like I was like, this was a really proactive couple that I got to work with a few different things. Like one time the wife wanted to learn how to peg. And so I taught her how to peg her husband, which was really fun. And like, just, I like when couples are just exploratory and not coming to like fix something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. In my work, like I've actually like made the decision like not to work with couples.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I rarely do.
Yeah.
I've rarely done it. So the ratio of positive and negative experiences are pretty equal right now, and that's not a good place to be. Like, if I know more now, like if I had the same couple show up in my office and there was this kind of air of fix my wife,
Yeah.
I'm going to
Yeah.
fix her right out of your relationship is what I'm going to do.
Exactly.
Right? I'm going to burn this shit down.
Yeah.
Um, but on the flip side, I had I'm working with a client, and their one of their partners wanted to learn more about what we were doing in session together, like the exercises and stuff, so that they could practice them at home.
Mm.
And that was lovely.
Yeah.
Like it came in with this like curiosity and just this positive air to it about building off of what they already have, not fixing something.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that sounds actually really beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I just believe that like if a person like fully dives into themselves and learns about themselves, then yeah, the relating piece will not necessarily sort itself out, but yeah, it'll become a lot less charged, right? Like as a person becomes more comfortable with themselves, as they open up, then the way that they relate with their partner is just naturally gonna change. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
It's not about learning a certain set of moves, right?
exactly.
I
Yeah,
always say like it's not Cosmo's 10 things to blow her mind. That's not what we need to
exactly.
do here. But
Hmm.
that's where my cuddle background shows up. You want another one? You
Sure.
ready to go to stage 2? The
Yeah,
double
oh,
X?
stage two.
I gotta find one that's not a wild card. You don't know this, but wild cards I just don't like.
Okay.
I'm gonna skip that one. That feels a little
Well,
too.
what was it?
What's the worst head you've ever given, and what did it teach you?
Okay, interesting.
Oh, this is an interesting one. How much do you trust yourself to stay faithful in a relationship?
Hmm. Hmm.
Are
Hmm.
you in a relationship? What's your relationship status?
Yeah. So currently cohabitating with my co-parent. And I'm in a long-term committed relationship. And I identify as poly and ethically non-monogamous. So yeah, there's like a few satellites that fly in, and I have some friends with benefits. And I have just like um, some friends that are, not the same gender as me. So yeah, my constellation just kind of looks like all kinds of ways, and everyone is like aware. There's open communication. Um, yeah, I mean, I do trust myself to be faithful, right? Because yeah, to me, faithful doesn't equal like monogamous and not
Monogamous.
having sex with no one else except for your partner. It just means that yeah, you're open and you're honest, and everyone gets to consent to what happens, right? It's like these are the types of relationships that I have with these people. And yeah, the person that receives that information gets to choose how they want to relate with me. And we can,
Yeah.
figure something out of that.
Honoring our agreements, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm primarily a pair bondy person.
Mm,
I've tried the poly world. I think I have a polyamorous heart, as
mm,
in like I think I have such rich, beautiful relationships all around me that it looks very much like the poly world. And I'm also like it's such a complicated how to identify. We're technically monogamous right now. Um as far as like we're not engaging in recreational sex with others, I clearly still have my work, but my partner understands that that is not the same as having
Yeah.
sex outside of like work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some people, I think the people, sex workers that are in relationships, it's not going to work if your partner thinks that this is the same thing as going out and just consensually hooking up with people. It's just
Yeah.
not the same. Um, but we engage very fluidly with the people around us. It's just right now we're sexually monogamous. Just because I have some old wounds that I just sometimes I get tired of working on myself.
Mm.
And I'm like, I just need things to be calm for a while because I get triggered pretty easily.
Mm.
Um, but so in this question, how much do I trust myself to stay faithful in my relationship? 100%, which is really funny. Not funny. The contrast of that is my first marriage, I cheated all the time.
Mm.
I was always like either emotionally infidelitous or however you would call that, or even physically at times. And some would say, well, once a cheater, always a cheater.
Mm.
Um, but I think in this situation, it was like I didn't have um, a true sense of autonomy
Mm.
in that this was like I didn't feel like I could talk to my partner. I didn't feel like I could change my circumstances.
Mm.
I felt like I had to be rescued, like I was waiting for the rescue plan kind of thing.
Mm.
Not that I couldn't do it for myself, but somebody else would rescue me.
Yeah.
So I look at it and I go, well, you were in a shitty relationship, which I would never leave myself in anymore. Right? It was a trappedness.
Yeah.
And so I'm not the same person I was then. So now, like, I'm incredibly loyal. Whatever those agreements are, like, whatever we're at, and we renegotiate usually once a year.
Mm.
Like on our anniversary, we talk about what we want for the next year of our relationship. And so it's never like this is the way it is. It's just this is the way it is right now.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah. And like, what can we do? What can't we do? Like, my partner really enjoys shibari and rope, right? And I'm finding myself not enjoying it anymore. And
Mm.
it's nice to be able to be like, he's going to go to a rope thing on Wednesday and I'm not going to go with him,
Mm.
right? He can tie other people. I'm totally fine with that. Like, it's just having these open conversations. I want to have the option if I decided to change my mind to go jump into rope with him again, but
Yeah.
I'm really okay outsourcing it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And that communication can really like foster like a comfort. It's like it sounds like, you're comfortable with him going to have these experiences with someone else because it doesn't take away or detract from what you have with him.
no, yeah. But when we are open, I get a little nutty um,
Mm.
because of abandonment wound stuff and how
Mm.
my first marriage ended, and like
Mm.
there's just stuff that comes up that I just don't feel like feeling.
Mm.
But if I know sex isn't on the table for whatever reason, this is like purity culture bullshit flowing. I'll totally honor that.
Mm.
I just relax a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I lost my first husband. I say lost. It was so good that it ended.
Yeah.
Right, like I'm so grateful for that. But it was in the midst of us having some other relating happening, and
Mm.
it shined a light on where we didn't have a connection.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that in my current relationship, but the memory is still there, and it activates me, and I'm like, this is exhausting.
Yeah.
And neither one of us care enough about it. Like, I think the way I think about it is if at any time we needed to change that, whether it's for a one-off situation or somebody's needs changed, we would just do that. We would just change it and I would tackle my shit.
Yeah.
But it's not important to either one of us right now. So
Yeah.
it's all conscious. That's what's important. Pick the thing that is like a choice and not just something that's placed on you.
Yes, absolutely. Always, always, always like being at choice. and even if it's like, I don't want to deal with this right now, like that's a choice too. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna say no because I don't want to deal with it. Like, I understand
Well,
this might make you happy, but it's too triggering for me. Like that.
well, and he doesn't care. He's like, this is not important to me.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you ever tallied up the scoreboard, I was way more active than he was.
Mm.
But I joke, like, he takes his time his time is spent playing video games and that kind of world, where my world is very people based. And so I just, in more opportunities, I liked the option to connect with my friends in different ways.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't feel like, I said, I got out of the poly side of it because I didn't feel like I really wanted to build other like romantic relationships. But when it came to like my friendships, it was nice to know that they could go wherever they went, and
Yeah.
I wasn't breaking any of those agreements with my partner.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like the thing that I really love about yeah, like open and polyamorous relationships is that it doesn't have to be any one set thing. And yeah, like I love to connect with people through touch, like for my like friendships and like intimate relationships. Like, I do feel best when there is um like a level of like touch that can be shared,
Mm-hmm.
that some people may not view as platonic, right? Some people are
Right.
like, oh, like this is whatever, or try to put a label on it. But me and whoever I'm relating with, we get to decide like what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it also solves maybe it doesn't solve isn't the right word. I think that when sex with others is not considered taboo or a scarcity, we approach it differently, right? Because when I was married before, this person would come into my life that I had a pull towards. And because I wasn't supposed to take it anywhere there, it became this like fantasy,
Mm,
not based anywhere in reality, right? You got to kind of like have obsessive thoughts around this thing that you couldn't access, right?
yeah.
And it gives it power
Yes.
that for me, just like, there's ways I would describe my sexuality, and it keeps getting more clear to me all the time. I've realized this year that I don't experience sexual attraction. I
Mm,
experience other kinds of attraction. I want to be like, when I say, "Ooh, I want to cuddle you, Darren," that is my version of like sexual attraction. It's this
mm,
sensual attraction where I'm
yes.
like, I want to be close to you. I want to I want to do these cards with you. I want to have emotional and physical intimacy with you. But it doesn't go to the sex place in
Yeah.
my initial contact.
Yeah.
So I am on the asexual spectrum, which is really fascinating to know about myself. But being in that like container of, oh, I got to have the closeness with you, then I may get turned on, arousal may show up, and then desire shows up,
Yeah.
right? But what I learned from Aubrey Lancaster, I've said this on feels like a lot of podcasts lately, she's a asexuality educator,
Mm,
was that sexual attraction is pointed at a person, where sexual desire is the desire for sex. It's not person specific
yeah.
necessarily, right? So like, for me, how I would describe like my sexuality orientation, when a therapist the other night said, I would call you your sexuality is responsive sexuality. Like,
Mm,
it just shows up in response to something. And I was
mm,
like, oh, that's really an interesting way to think about it. I've also called myself a curious sexual, that
mm,
I just get curious about someone. Like, I shared this story the other day. Brian Gibney has great touch. His sensate focus hand caress is intoxicating. My
mm,
brain goes to, if he can touch my hand like that, right? The curiosity shows up. It's
mm,
not the same as like what I envision sexual attraction feels like. I think I've had it one time at a party years ago. I walked in and it was so foreign to me, it scared me and I left. Like that's how I, looking back at this in retrospect, I'm like, yeah, I think maybe that one time, that's why it felt so odd to me and so overwhelming, and that I just left the party.
Wow.
Yeah, the things you can retrospectively go back and look at. So all of that plays into the complications of how I connect with people.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
I would rather cuddle the shit out of them. Aubrey, she uses the term polyaffectionate. And I'm like, oh, that relates. I can relate to that. And I think of my work as an outlet for a lot of that, because I just get to love, like I get paid to love people.
Yeah.
It's so great.
Yeah.
And I think it alleviates. My husband used to say, you have way too much love. I can't handle it all. You need to be able to spread it to other people. If it was solely focused on him, he would lose his mind. And I get to do that through work. So maybe that's why I don't participate in those communities quite as much.
Yeah.
I'm an introvert. By the time I get done with work, I loved all I could.
I hear you. Yeah. Yeah. Need a little cave time.
Oh my gosh. Cave time is real important.
Yeah. 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 I've heard the term like polysensual batted around, and that's kind of like how I identify. Like I really love sensation and sharing like sensual intimacy, but like, you know, actual like penetrative sex is like, it's all right, right? Like it's not like a driving factor when I connect with someone.
Yeah. 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 It's an offshoot, or I don't know. Okay. Are you ready for our last question? We're in the triple X level. And I put a lot of cards back because I was like, nope, don't feel like going down that road. Okay.
Okay. Let me clear my throat for a sec. Okay, I'm ready.
What's something you try in bed if there were no consequences? I know my answer.
Well, since you have one ready, go for it.
I have a real big fascination with gangbangs from a sense of, it's one of those things I would love to just try it and check the box. I'm sure it would need to do it more than once. But the risk factors seem a lot higher in that space. Like, I feel like you have to have a gangbang manager who I've heard too many stories. I listened to Dan Savage, and I remember this one episode where somebody called in, and this is where I learned about the term gangbang manager. And the story was horrendous. And I know I would have a much more curated space because I'm very fortunate to have community that could do this in a very safe and responsible way. But this story just kind of like this woman was like reporting back that condoms were being left in her. And I'm just like, there's just so much of a safety thing around that for me. So that is the thing that I have a curiosity, but I don't have enough drive to take it off the just fantasy list.
Yeah. Well, luckily the card said if there were no
consequences. Yeah. Right.
This is interesting. Like,
And if you just want to contemplate it and you don't feel like sharing it, like, you don't have to share it on the recording.
Yeah. I mean,
that's up to you.
Like, I can be vulnerable here, and a little like, it is like an edge, like pushing an edge. If there were like no consequences, kind of like this vinyl rubber play where people's breath is restricted. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like the bed one where they put you in
the vacuum. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
curious to you?
Yeah, yeah, very curious. I mean, in some ways, like it's exciting to watch, and like watching it on the screen is like enough like safety. It's like enough distance. It's like okay, I can watch
Yeah.
it for a little while, but it seems really, um, yeah, dangerous in some ways, which might like heighten the appeal. But yeah, it seems like it takes a high level of expertise to be able to top for something like that, like safely. So,
Yeah. I was at Dark Odyssey summer camp.
hmm,
Is that the one that happens Labor Day weekend in Maryland?
yeah,
I think it's Dark Odyssey summer camp. And they had a class on that, and
hmm,
I didn't go to it, but I was a little curious. There's some things I have a hard time, like I don't even want to be around it. I watched a waterboarding scene one time, and
ooh,
I was like, whoa, I don't think I could do that again. Like, I
yeah,
definitely don't want to participate in it as far as like topping or bottoming, but
right.
also like just even watching it was like a little hard for me. But that's the beauty of being able to remove yourself from spaces, right? Don't yuck anyone's yum.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, knowing that like things are consensual go for
Mm-hmm.
me like goes a long way. It's like, okay, like this is something that like pleases this person. So, if they're bottoming for something that's pretty intense, it's like, okay, like I trust that, that they're taking care of themselves and their choice.
Yeah, yeah. What is it Midori says about BDSM? It's just cops and robbers for adults with better toys. Something like that.
Something like yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Mm,
There's so much to learn in that world. You can
yeah.
always feed your brain.
Yeah, I mean, there's like sub kinks, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you can get really, really, really specific, really
Mm-hmm.
specific. Yeah.
And I remember having a client that was figuring some of that out in our space, like what their kinks were. And they had this initial feeling of like, oh, this complicates my sexuality. And I'm just like, you're so lucky to know what you like. So many people will never figure that out because they won't take the risk, right? To just explore those things. So you're fortunate that you have this knowledge, and now like think of it as just fine tuning your dating pool. Or then you don't have to date them. You can get in the community and find people that can give you these experiences. And FYI, people listening on the internet, BDSM and kink doesn't even have to involve sex.
Absolutely.
Like, I did a lot of my own work from my childhood and messaging from my father. I worked through in impact play
Mm,
and like getting beat
mm,
consciously, and being able to like really feel my strength, how much I could take, reclaiming some of the like I remember hearing, my father's words of like, I'll give you something to cry about, and
mm,
feeling like this was like legitimate tears, which now I would look at and say all tears are legitimate tears. But at that stage in my healing process, that's what I needed to go through. Right? It's such a beautiful, like it's a playground for us to try things that, because we have communication and consent, we get to, decide what our risk levels are, what our tolerance is, but we get to make shit up and just try it out.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I really like that scene because, yeah, there can be some really like amazing connections that you can have with people, like when, um, yeah, for instance, like someone gives up control, for lack of a better word, but when they give themselves over to uh, an experience and they have the confidence that I'll be able to like hold them safely and like gently and actually care for them, regardless of what the scene looks like, regardless of what's happening. It's like I'm present with them, I'm connected with them, and I'm caring for them in a way that feels good to them. Like it can be, yeah, really magical to share those moments with people.
I suggested this to a client the other day. I had a call with a client and her therapist, And it was like more of like a collaboration, like let's brainstorm a little bit here in our work. And I was like, I want to mention that the client had gone through sexual abuse as a child.
Mm.
And one of the things and I have permission, she's always like, you can talk about my work as much as you want. She has this remnant from then of being violently hurt and not understanding, being that this was her father, how he could do that and not hold her afterwards. Probably need to put a trigger warning on the front of this episode. And she brought this up, this memory that had been resurfacing for her recently. And I said, I have an idea, but I don't even know how to get your all's consent to tell you about it, because I don't think you even have a starting point of where I'm about to go.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, okay. And I said, I think that having some kind of scene that involves some discomfort, whatever that, we could figure out what that is, a little bit of discomfort, whether it's from
impact,
flogging or whatever, right? And then being able to experience the aftercare would be really reparative. And thankfully, and I didn't know this therapist super well, this is a client I don't work with on the regular. It's kind of, because they're on the other side of the country, it's a very sporadic interaction between us. The therapist was like, thank you for bringing that up. You just unlocked a whole bunch of ideas for me. And I'm just like, yay. Because you don't know if it's going to be like, how dare you bring this into our space, or if it's going to be met with curiosity and imagination. And we haven't gone there yet in our work, but I could see it being something that either we do together, or I keep helping source resources for her in her area, so she doesn't have to come to California for these things. But there's so much that can be done in that space.
Yeah. And like so much, I mean, there are people that are really diving into like kink and BDSM and like healing, like they're looking at that convergence. And a lot of fascinating work.
Yep. I'm glad to be connected to that world. I started in that world before I knew what I was going to go for this part of my life as far as career wise, but and they don't overlap all that often, but they do overlap when they need to. And I think when clients figure out that I have that background, they're like, oh, I can talk to Michelle about anything. Right. I always put it like even in my my Cuddlist profile, it says like open to alternative lifestyles. Right. It's like, how do you say it in a way that's like, I'm into this world, like I float in these spaces. And to have somebody that just, even if it's that we're not playing together in our work, to have a place to talk about it is really helpful. And like cuddling and talking about those parts of your life, those two things can go together. They can.
I mean, I do feel that there are like people in these professions that kind of, operate with sexuality as like this kind of headspace thing. And there are people that really embrace it and have integrated it into and normalized it in their lives. Right. And I mean, I feel like those people are a huge resource, because it's like, I'm actually living it. I've learned a lot about myself and my sexuality, and I've integrated it all. And like, I'm a resource. I can like help you.
Yeah. Okay, Darren, we hit the 1.5 hour mark. And we've gone through all 3 levels of both cards. So I'm going to say, I feel full.
Okay. Yeah.
I feel full.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel good about this one. I feel a little rambly, but I'm sure that the magic of this will.
It's conversation. It's not scripted. We don't come into this with a plan. We just get to follow. It's like the intimacy professionals. We don't come in with a plan. We wait to see what shows up, and then we just follow the breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
So, Darren, I feel like I know you so much better now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know you. A whole lot better. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
This is
now I
great.
can hear the Michigan accent a little bit clearer
Oh,
now. It's like, oh, okay, I hear
I
it.
met a new client. Well, I did an intake for a new client the other night, and immediately he goes, "Oh, I love Midwest people. They're
Hmm.
like a certain, breed." And I was like, "That's me. I'm I'm kind and I smile and nod at people,
Hmm.
and sometimes they think that means more than it does, and whatever. It's
Yeah,
all good. I
yeah,
have my no. I
yeah,
don't have to run away from that."
yeah. It's just like a little bit of a needle bend towards nice, right? It's like just
Well,
a little
yeah,
bit nicer.
I'm kind. I
Yeah,
hate like the night. Like
like
there's a
nice.
book, No More Mr. Nice Guy, that book. I've never read it, but
Mm,
I've referred it to many people.
mm, mm.
I'm the girl that's known for her boundaries, yet I'm still considered kind. So that's a good combination.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. When in doubt, just be kind.
Yeah, and truthful.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Kind and truthful.
Yeah.
A no is good information,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. One of my mottos, I will end it after this. One of my mottos is, yeah, I seek ease and comfort, but not at the expense of truth.
Yes. Yes. I am not here to disappoint myself anymore.
Yeah.
I will disappoint other people first.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Darren, where can people find you?
Hmm.
Do you share, like, do you do social media, website,
Uh,
whatever?
A little bit. I'm not like I just like repost some stuff on IG. You could probably just search my name, Darren Cyrus, and the underscore Darren underscore experience will come up.
Oh,
Yeah,
the Darren experience. All
Darren
right.
experience. And my business, Bare Soul Wellness, you can find on IG and Facebook.
Cool. Well, we'll put them in the notes. And I don't know when this is going to come out. We recorded on Monday, January 8th, but
Mm.
I have so many of these banked up. I'm considering, like, I got to get caught up on my editing, but I might be able to start putting these out every week instead of every other
Oh
week.
wow!
So,
And if for some reason this one doesn't get through quality control and doesn't make the cut,
oh,
it's okay.
there is no quality control. This totally makes the cut, even with quality control. But I'm just like, it's not a perfectionist space. This is like a voyeuristic, watch Michelle
Hmm.
connect with
Wow.
colleagues, friends, strangers, I suppose. Like, it's interesting. I put out these cards, and you're one of the people that signed up when I posted it on my Facebook. I've got I've got people. I had, like, you're somebody I know more just because of the group that we're in together
Mhm.
than some of the people that have signed up. I'm like, oh, cool. This is going to be a great way to get to know this person. We've
Oh,
been
wow.
connected on Facebook or something, but like I haven't actually interacted. So
Very cool.
yay for experiments.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, wishing you and sending you like a lot of support, a lot of success, a lot of rest. Yeah,
Yeah.
all the things you might need to make it through the day.
Well, thank you so much, Darren. This was a great way to start the day. I look forward to seeing you on our next call together, and I'll hopefully see you when I'm in DC later this year.
Yeah, shoot me some deets and
I
holla
will.
at your boy.
I will holler at my boy. All right. Mwah, love you. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us. If you'd like to comment, pose a question, or learn more about the guests often featured on the show, visit us at intimacylabpodcast.com. Please also take a moment to review us on your favorite podcast app. It's one of the best ways to show your support. As for me, you can find out more about my work at meetmichellerenee.com, as well as on most social medias at meetmichellerenee. Let's connect again soon.